I did another massive poll over on Instagram, and the winning recipe from all of the options was a 100% passion fruit dessert on which these macarons are inspired. Because there were so many different layers of passion fruit flavor in the original recipe, I wanted to continue that. And because it's just so much to put into one macaron, I decided to make a larger, more petite size macaron. And because I wanted it to kind of look like passion fruit, which is a really, really dark purple, usually on the outside, I decided to go for that. So I started with my regular French method here. I'm using a violet, like a lot of the colorant to color these macarons, whipping up my meringue here, streaming in my sugar and cream of tartar, getting a really stiff peak. I did want to darken and deepen this just a little bit. The color wasn't quite dark enough. So after adding in some of my dry ingredients, I did go through and add a little bit more colorant. Otherwise, this is just like normal. Even with a larger petite size macaron, I am doing all the same steps as usual, folding in my dry ingredients and then macaronaging to that same ribbon stage. If you have never made a petite size or larger size macaron, do not worry, it is completely okay. I do recommend, though, using a little bit larger piping tip. A lot of people really love like an 803, 804 size piping tip for a regular size small macaron. I would recommend 804, 805 if you're doing something that's going to end up being, 3 or 4 inches. Additionally, if you do not have a template, it is so easy to use a cookie cutter or a glass or like something. I'm sure you have something circular in your home or kitchen. Just use a Sharpie or any kind of marker or pencil to outline whatever that is, and there is your template. It is super easy to do. So I'm just going to finish getting this macaron batter ready, and then it's time to pipe those macaron shells. So just like any macaron, I am going to pipe this onto my baking sheet. I have a Teflon baking sheet here today. I'm just piping straight down like always, just going consistently. The one thing I do want to kind of, I don't know if warn is the right word, but I want to remind you that when you are creating a much larger macaron, it's easier to build up higher, and then when you tap your tray, that has the potential to move a lot farther as it settles down. So I would recommend that as you are creating a template, depending on how far off of your mat you are piping, how big that's getting, how tall it's getting, you may want your template to be just the size that you pipe to, and then when you tap your tray, you know that it's going to spread out and get much larger, or to make sure you're piping much closer to your tray, going really slowly, trying to get a thinner layer, Or just know that you might not want to pipe quite to the edge of your template. You want to be just inside your template, something like that, because the movement is probably going to be a little bit bigger unless you use that kind of swirly snail shell method of getting one really even layer. But if you pipe like this, like a regular macaron, just know that it has the potential to spread a lot more. As far as resting and baking these macarons, I would rest them for about the same amount of time, for me about 20-25 minutes. But then as far as baking, I am going to bake these longer. So my usual macarons are usually about 17-ish minutes. These ones I baked for more like 20 to 22. For the filling, we have 3 different passion fruit elements. The first one is a passion fruit almond cream. This one I am using a really concentrated passion fruit flavor from Amoretti. I usually don't use this kind of product, but I felt like the thickness of it and the concentrated flavor would work well for this method. If you want to just swap it out for passion fruit puree, that is completely okay. So I'm just creating a really basic almond cream here, butter, some powdered sugar, almond flour, a little bit of flour, an egg, and then I'll add in that passion fruit flavoring at the end. This brand, the passion fruit flavor, I do think is a pretty good passion fruit flavor, though a lot of concentrated flavors and extracts, even from the same brand, are not things that I love personally. So if you are ever going into a new extract or a new concentrate, really make sure to smell it and taste it before you put it into your baked good, just in case. So after chilling that almond cream, I'm just baking it up in these little rounds. You do not have to use a mold like this. You can spread it out on a sheet pan or in a cake pan and then bake it up and cut it with a knife or a cookie cutter later. You just want to make sure that you get it somehow baked and ready to go into your macaron shell. The next layer of passion fruit is a passion fruit whipped ganache. So for this one, I am using both a passion fruit inspiration chocolate and passion fruit puree. And then I also have more usual things for making a whipped ganache. I have some gelatin, I have cream. I'm just blooming the gelatin in some ice water. There are many different methods for doing this, but this is just one I use when I have gelatin sheets. Just make sure you really squeeze out all the water after it is bloomed. I heated up my passion fruit puree and then got that bloomed gelatin into it, and then I'm going to pour that gelatin and passion fruit mixture on top of my slightly melted chocolates. I decided to use a mix of both white chocolate and passion fruit inspiration chocolate, and then I'm adding in a bit of vanilla. If you wanted to use 100% passion fruit inspiration chocolate, you can. Just know that it is a pretty pricey chocolate, and the flavor between even half of that chocolate and the passion fruit puree is already quite intense, so I think it's okay to have that balance. I then streamed in the cream. Sorry, I do not have footage of that. I do not know why. And then after it was completely cooled down, I just whipped it up when I was ready to pipe the cream in my mixer. At first, it will look really thick because of the gelatin, and then you want to whip it. It will take a little bit of time to whip it up to like a medium stiff peak. If you whip it up to a completely stiff peak, and then as it is sitting between piping all of your macaron shells, it might get a little bit look overmixed in texture, so I do recommend a medium stiff peak. The very last element is a passion fruit gel for the inside. Here again, I'm using some sheet gelatin that I've just bloomed in my ice water again. And then I also have passion fruit puree, lime juice, and a little bit of sugar. I had been hoping to use fresh passion fruit for half of this and then half passion fruit puree, but all of my local grocery stores that I checked did not have passion fruit in, and I thought that one of them would have some passion fruit. So anyway, that was a little bit disappointing. I was hoping to get some of the actual passion fruit seeds in there, so I would recommend making that change if you can. Otherwise, just passion fruit puree is okay. I just brought the lime juice, passion fruit puree, and sugar up to a scald. So I'm not really boiling this, but I am cooking it until it is warm and then adding in that gelatin, transferring this to another container and then letting it cool completely until it's solid. I should have just cast this into a mold or scooped it in because I love this initial texture. I wanted to pipe it in, so I mixed it up a lot more, and that was a mistake. So don't do that. But the taste is great and the texture initially was amazing. So to make and fill these macarons, as you can see, I added a touch of gold leaf to some of them because I couldn't resist. I just added that passion fruit almond cream into the center, piped the whipped passion fruit ganache around the outside, and then I'm going to place the passion fruit gel on top of the almond cream in the inside. This was the first time I was making this recipe and all of these things together, so it wasn't completely planned out. And so as far as like the amounts of everything and layering everything, I think if I did this again, I would cast the gel onto the almond cream after the almond cream was baked to have a little bit better of a layer there. And then also I think either I would I ended up cutting down some of the almond cream, so I had more room for the ganache, so it wasn't like maybe falling off the edge. And then also I think one other way to get around this is just make it even larger. So I made this kind of a regular petite size macaron. You could kind of, again, reduce the size of the almond cream, make sure the gel was really in there, and then, yeah, maybe even make it a little bit bigger to really get a lot of all of those elements inside, particularly more of the almond cream and more of the gel. I felt like going any higher with the whipped ganache would have been a challenge, which is why it felt hard. And also like getting an even taller macaron isn't necessarily like great for biting into it and enjoying it. So I did have a little bit of a challenge there, but luckily all of the elements in this macaron, from the macaron shell itself to the almond cream to the passion fruit ganache to the gel, are all so delicious. And after maturing, it was just like a dream to bite into. So good. Before I end this video, I do want to note, because I know I'm going to get a bunch of comments about this, I personally think that this whipped ganache is too moist to use as a regular macaron filling. There's just way too much moisture. So yes, you could use it to fill a macaron, but I wouldn't recommend keeping it long term. Like fill your macaron and then eat it the next day. It would not have a longer shelf life than that because it would create too much moisture going into the shell and it would become a bit mushy if you used a whipped ganache like this for a regular macaron shell. Let's cut into this. Take a look. Oh my gosh, look at all those layers, and you just know that they're all like really bright and passion fruit flavored. So good. Thanks for recommending this over on Instagram. Thank you to everyone who took part in this followers choice poll. It was a lot of fun to create, and I hope you love it as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, have a wonderful day. Bye.